So, speaking as a less famous non binary resident of Vermont, yeah, this thing has layers in how it annoys me. All right, well, I did say towards the start of the year I had a feeling that this kind of content, me doing a relatively quick turnaround, talking about nonsense going on with individuals that impacts the sorts of things I normally talk about, was probably going to happen regularly. I really wish I'd been wrong. But we need to talk about Ezra Miller. Here's the first thing I want to lay out. I will be talking about the ways in which they have gotten in trouble. I will be going over that as completely as I can. I don't think, unless something really insane happens, I don't think I'm going to have any addendums on this one, though, because I actually don't care if anything new happens with them between when I record this and when it goes up. Because what I mainly want to focus on is the situation that Warner Brothers now finds themselves in as a result of all this. That's usually what I like to focus on when I talk about these sorts of things. But we need to go over recent history with Ezra Miller. But before we get to what happened most recently, it should be noted this is far from their first brush with legal issues. It actually goes all the way back to 2011, where they initially had a run-in with police in regards to marijuana possession and disorderly conduct. I don't think too many people are holding that against them any longer because, well, it was over a decade ago and it was pot. Like, nobody cares about pot anymore. So I'm putting that there for completeness sake. More relevantly, in 2020, there was not only an incident where they grabbed a woman by the neck and put her down on the ground in a choke at a bar in Reykjavik, Iceland, but that was caught on video. I'm not going to show it, but it's on video. So that was sort of where the initial big concern started to be around, like, wait a minute, should this person really be getting positioned as a major Hollywood star in some of the biggest franchises going if this is how they're going to behave? Now, some people did at that point basically jump ship and either said they weren't going to watch things with Ezra Miller in them, or some even going so far as to say that it's necessary to boycott things that Ezra Miller is in to ensure that they are not continued to be employed. That didn't catch a ton of traction. If I were to guess, I think for people who, I'm not sure anybody thought that was okay. What happened? I never really saw anybody make that argument. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a decent percentage of people who basically were prepared to let it be a one-off. Since the last time they got into any legal trouble was at that point 9 years ago, it really kind of seemed like, okay, well, this was at a bar. Folks were probably drinking. Maybe it was heightened. Like, it's not good, but maybe this is a one-off. Well, it definitely was not, given what's gone on in the last month. So Ezra Miller has been in Hawaii for, it's actually not entirely clear how long they've been there, but things blew up when they were actually formally arrested by police in Hawaii after an incident where they were screaming, again, in a bar, screaming obscenities, yanking the microphone away from a woman who was singing karaoke, and lunging at a guy playing darts. The police showed up and did, in fact, arrest them. Now, we'll get to the thing that happened after that, but it has recently come out that this was not a one-off. There had been at least 9 previous incidents of them being in situations and causing disturbances that resulted in the police being called. There were no arrests made, so it didn't really hit the news cycle, but now it's become background that for about the last month, they have been kind of terrorizing the Hawaiian nightlife and getting repeatedly thrown out, banned from bars, and having the cops called to show up and ensure that they leave. And then, apparently after being released from the initial arrest, because they weren't jailed as a result of this, but being released, having the charges filed, They then went to the house that apparently they were staying at with this couple, and allegedly, according to the couple, who has successfully gotten a temporary restraining order against them, they burst into the bedroom, screamed threats at them, and apparently stole a whole bunch of stuff, including a passport and a wallet. So I'm not going to dwell too much on these specific incidents because I'm sure as heck not going to try and psychoanalyze and figure out what the hell are they doing. I don't know. I don't know what's going on, and I'm not going to try and parse it. What I want to talk about, what I want to zero in on, is Warner Brothers, who is multi-tiered screwed because of this. They're screwed on two major fronts. The first is the third Fantastic Beast film. Fantastic Beasts, Secret of Dumbledore, Bumbledy, I don't know. But then also, next year, The Flash movie comes out. And of course, Ezra Miller has been playing The Flash in a number of films so far. Mainly just the two different versions of Justice League. And then recently cameoed in some other stuff that was DC related. Not going to say what it was because it's a little bit of a spoiler. But they really were lined up to keep things going. And like the Flash movie this thing has been in the works forever. And there's potentially, depending on what the story, if it is what is rumored in terms of the specific, like some things we're pretty certain about, but if the goal and scope of it is what is expected, they were probably banking on having Ezra Miller around for a while. Oh boy. Okay. So we're mainly going to be talking about from the perspective of PR. Warner Brothers has two major films coming out, which star in either a major supporting role or the lead role, an actor who is now shown a repeated history of violence. That ain't good. Now, here's the first thing that needs to be made completely clear, and I think people definitely would have already figured this out, at least with the first one. Warner Brothers cannot afford to remove Ezra Miller from these films. In the case of Fantastic Beasts, by the time I get this video out, it'll already have been released in the UK, and it'll be out the following week in the US. Movie's done. They've spent what they're going to spend on it, and they are not going to bounce it this close to the release date over this. So whatever PR damage there is, they're just going to have to eat it. And of course, there's already a lot of question marks and scrutiny around this film already between the 1-2 combination of A, Crimes of Grindelwald not being especially well received by fans or critics, and the ongoing PR nightmare, if you're trying to appeal to even a slightly progressive audience, of continuing to support and promote the works of J.K. Rowling. So, like, this thing was already in a bit of trouble. And that's before we even get to the fact that while the flat logistical reality is there was no way, there's no time, there is no conceivable way to replace Ezra Miller in this film, even if people understand that, it's still a really bad look because they already replaced another actor for this film. As you may or may not recall, back in 2020, Johnny Depp was supposed to take on the role of Grindelwald again, replaying it from his initial cameo in the first film and as a featured antagonist in the second. That did not happen. And it's worth pointing this out. Strictly speaking, he wasn't let go from that franchise because of the allegations against him by Amber Heard. Though some of those had actually already been in the mix when he was in Crimes of Grindelwald. There actually had been some call that maybe he shouldn't have been in that film, even at the time. And at the time, Warner Brothers stood by him. Strictly speaking, it wasn't that. What it actually was that Johnny Depp lost a lawsuit that he had brought against British tabloids, basically saying, like, you can't call me a wife beater, was basically what it boiled down to. And he lost that. Which means that the reason Warner Brothers let him go was strictly from the PR perspective that if they had him in place, the UK tabloids, and keep in mind, even though Warner Brothers is primarily an American studio, this is considered a British UK property. The UK tabloids could have been free if they so felt to just put Wife Beater's new movie opens up or anything like that because they'd won in court the right to be able to call him that. That was the reason he was let go. Now, yes, it's connected to the Amber Heard stuff. But strictly speaking, he wasn't let go because of that. He was let go because of the PR issues that resulted from his lost lawsuit. But he got replaced by Mads Mikkelsen. Now, Warner Brothers has already kind of started looking really bad around all this, as is, because of the weird, complicated, and very, very messy stuff that has come out about Amber Heard since then. I am not opening this can of worms any more than I have to. Do not turn this into an argument about Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. Just understand that I'm sure at the time they made the decision, felt like what made the most sense. Unfortunately, in another department of Warner Brothers, over in the DC EU, Amber Heard was playing Mera and Aquaman and is continuing to play the part in the upcoming Aquaman sequel. So again, regardless of the actual reality that Johnny Depp was more let go because of the loss of the lawsuit, and that the people at the particular heads of these different subdivisions, the people working on the Harry Potter stuff, and the people working on the DC comic book superhero stuff, they are not obligated to coordinate and hold each other to the same standard when it comes to who to retain. The image, regardless of all that reality, was that they booted Johnny Depp, sided with Amber Heard, and then at best, the question of Depp's guilt, or at least the likelihood of it, and or the how clean Heard was looking, it got, again, at best, messy. Not getting into it any more than that. But they already kind of had a bad look on that. And now, again, regardless of the actual reality being that they can't reshoot this, they're now stuck with somebody with violent arrest record issues in the film that they booted somebody from for a not vastly dissimilar public image issue. This looks real bad. I don't know how badly this is going to impact the movie, but it's not going to help. And I can't imagine, especially anybody who might have been on the bubble, like, maybe I'll see it, maybe I won't. I don't know how much of a dent this specific thing is going to take out of it, but it's going to have a little impact. I have a hard time imagining it wouldn't, because at least speaking personally, I know a lot of people who were super ambivalent about this movie, even people who continue to varying degrees to support the Harry Potter franchise seemed pretty ambivalent and unenthusiastic about this. And this just becomes one more reason to maybe skip it or wait for streaming or what have you. So Warner Brothers is already dealing with a massive headache, but theoretically, it's a headache they can ride out because it will impact the initial release of the film. Can't be helped at this point. They just need to try and power through and milk as much money out of this release as they can. But then there's The Flash, which has already been pushed back. Well, that's not even counting the absolute development hell it's been going through. So The Flash was supposed to come out this year. Well, actually, it was supposed to come out in 2020, even before that. But like more recently, it was supposed to come out this year. It got pushed back to 2023, June, if I remember correctly, mainly because of the additional time needed to finish the special effects. This is partly impacted by COVID and the desire to not have people crammed together in a tight space working on all the rendering, more people working from home. Basically, special effects is a slower process now if you want to respect the health and the safety concerns of the people working for you. So they already had to push it back a year. Now, that might work to their benefit if Ezra Miller cannot get into any more trouble between now and then, maybe it will be in a similar situation to the choking incident before, where, like, there was a while that passed without anything else happening, and most people, again, lots of people weren't, but, like, the general public seemed to prepare to let go. It was fading from memory. That is their best case scenario, Warner Brothers' best case scenario, that the memory of Ezra Miller getting arrested fades because nothing else happens and gives people reason to keep thinking about it. Now, that's a big if, given, like I said, this is not really one incident in Hawaii. This is a string of incidents eventually resulting in arrest and a restraining order. But like, this has kind of been going on continuously for a bit already. And even if Ezra Miller does not get in trouble between now and then, Warner Brothers has already got to be going, oh, God, because they are proving themselves to be a liability. That's the thing. It is actually much less, more often than not, about the specific incident that gets a star in trouble. I mean, sometimes it's so severe you just have to walk away and cut them loose. Generally, what determines whether or not they continue to be considered to be employable by Hollywood is how frequently do they keep coming up in the news cycle for bad behavior. Because if it's just the once, even if it's for a pretty bad thing, after a year, 2 years, they'll probably get back to being employed regularly. But when they keep getting in trouble for similar things over and over and over again, and it keeps coming up in the public sphere, well, that is the thing that is much more likely to permanently tank a career and or make a studio not want to work with somebody anymore. And I have to imagine, even taking into account that they cannot drop them from the Flash movie, I'll get into that in a minute, even taking that into account, Warner Brothers has got to be going, we cannot keep using them. Like, there might be more films on a contract, but usually those are contract options, not we are definitely giving you this many movies. It's more, we can get this many movies from you if we want to keep bringing you back, depending on the specifics of the contract. But that's usually the way it goes and it plays out. So let's talk about why Warner Brothers is stuck with them for the Flash movie. They're the entire thing. They are the Flash. And I'm sure there are some people out there who might have been speculating, well, this is supposedly kind of a multiverse movie. Why couldn't they replace Ezra Miller? Why couldn't they bring in a Flash from a different universe and just use that as the opportunity to recast? Because the movie's already shot. Filming was finished. At this point, it's just special effects work. And you need to realize that to replace Ezra Miller, you would most likely have to reshoot everything that they were in, which means getting back all the resources that you don't have on hand anymore, including actors, set designers, costumers, the works. You got to get everybody back in. And even if you do the thing with like Tig Notaro in Army of the Dead, where you film the new actor in front of nothing but green screen, which, depending on how effects heavy the movie is, might even be a viable option, that is still going to start so much work from scratch to reintegrate this new performer and or to remove Ezra Miller from the existing footage. Lots of special effects, which is already delaying the film, are going to have to be redone, reworked, or possibly done from scratch off of brand new footage that had to be shot. You need to realize, because of how long the Flash movie has been delayed, how many writers and directors it's already gone through, they are in a serious sunk cost issue. They've already spent so much money on this thing. There's already a very, very slim chance that it is ever going to make its money back as is. They definitely cannot afford to do this. And like, keep in mind, the last few times there has been a major change to an actor in the last few years, shortly before release, was the aforementioned Army of the Dead with Tig Notaro, which, as I said, they had to do it through all green screen. And the other one was All the Money in the World, where Kevin Spacey was replaced by Christopher Plummer. Now, it's worth noting that in the case of All the Money in the World, that added $10 million to what was originally a $40 million budgeted film. And that movie, that was a low special effects drama. That did not require the kind of work, organization, and post-production that happens on things like Fantastic Beasts and The Flash. And as far as Army of the Dead, they did have to do a whole bunch of green screening in order to get Tig Notaro in and replace the original actor. But Netflix had a lot of incentive to pony up for that because they want to keep Zack Snyder happy. Snyder had been at Warner Brothers forever before things all blew up with Justice League and he left and started working with Netflix. Netflix Even if they don't make the money back on the reshoots as far as a raw cost, they want to keep Snyder happy because they want him to stay at Netflix and not wander off somewhere else. So it becomes a matter of, look how much we're willing to accommodate you. So they had incentive to do it. And you know what? I'll even say this. If this incident had happened 6 months ago, maybe Warner Brothers would have ponied up the money to replace Ezra Miller in Fantastic Beasts. They'd already replaced one actor already. It's an effects-heavy movie, so maybe, depending on the scenes that they're in, it might blend about as well as it's ever going to, just to shoot somebody else in. But again, at this point, there's no time. And even if they were able to do that with Fantastic Beasts, what are you supposed to do with The Flash? It's too much. It would require basically refilming the entire movie from scratch. And this movie is, the rumor at least, is that it's kind of big and important to the MCU. Because at this point, the MCU doesn't have a consistent continuity. Things aren't really connecting. Some things are direct follow-ups to certain other things, as in Batman v Superman follows on from Man of Steel. Both versions of Justice League follow on from that, but you have two competing versions of Justice League. Wonder Woman seems to fit in with that, but it interacts with it directly so little it doesn't matter. Ditto Aquaman. And then you've got outliers like Shazam and both Suicide Squad movies. Now, granted, we've had things like Peacemaker, which is a direct build-off from the Suicide Squad, but then you've got stuff like The Batman, which doesn't slot into the continuity at all. So it's all over the place. Now, there is word, and has been rumored for a while, and there's some credibility to this, that the Flash movie is effectively going to be the DC equivalent to Stephen Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, interconnecting and bringing in multiverse aspects. Now, it's actually arguable DC needed this, whereas Disney and the MCU probably didn't need to do this. They have chosen to do this. We'll see what they do with it. I'm kind of skeptical about it. I'm not a big fan of multiverse stories, but setting that aside, DC probably, if they wanted to pretend like there was a plan, needed to do that. Oh, and I even forgot about Joker, which doesn't slot into anything either. So if they want to pretend that there's a plan and any of this stuff is interconnected, they need a multiverse story to really start dealing with this stuff. And that is supposedly what this Flash movie is going to be. And there is reason to suspect it will in fact be that, based off, amongst other things, Michael Keaton coming back to reprise his role as Batman, as in the Tim Burton Batman from 1989. So there's ample reason to believe that this is going to be that story. Now, again, you might think, well, that means that like multiverse, you get a different actor in. You really can't, because as I said, they're in the whole thing. So I cannot imagine Warner Brothers ponying up that money, especially for a movie that's already filmed. It's done. It's in the can. Production costs are done. It's all post-production and marketing now. Expenses that don't go away, but suddenly you're doubling your production budget to shoot effectively the whole movie over again? Because I guarantee you, even if they try and do the most cost-effective version possible, which is basically the Tig Notaro route of shooting a new actor on green screen and CGIing them into everything, that is still going to take longer and cost more than they are prepared to shell out on a movie that it's already questionable if they were going to make any money back on. Here's the one asterisk I will put on this. I would say it's not out of the realm of possibility, either if we see alternate versions of The Flash played by other actors in this, or if that's not already the case, possibly do minor reshoots to add that in so at the very end of the film, they can move forward with a different actor in the role of The Flash. I wouldn't rule that out completely. Whether or not they feel it's viable or worth it or whatever, who knows? Warner Brothers kind of has taken the approach at this point of every time a movie isn't what they really want it to be, or doesn't perform as well as they want, to kind of ignore it. And to the best of their ability, pretend it didn't happen. I mean, that's best exemplified by Suicide Squad having a quote-unquote sequel called The Suicide Squad that relies in no way on any knowledge of the last time they tried to do that movie. The reason the supposed continuity is such a mess is because they're not trying to integrate it. They are seeing what lands, and if it doesn't land, they move on. And so unless there's a major sea change in the people handling it, which there hasn't been, I don't see that general approach changing. But again, I'll put that one caveat that if there are any reshoots relative to the Flash, for my money, it's going to be to account for a different version of Barry, or like there's a merging of multiple forms of Barry and somehow it ends up looking different, i.e. new actor. That is possible. That's about the only possibility left, though. Warner Brothers is so screwed. I cannot imagine that they will continue to work with Ezra Miller. And I have to imagine they are really annoyed with themselves for using them in that cameo that I mentioned in a more recent thing. Like, they probably wish that they could distance themselves from Ezra Miller as far as possible, but they've still got these films already in the can, already shot, already edited, actors paid, everybody paid, and in the case of The Flash, just waiting on the effects work. This, from a sunk cost and potential impact to box office, is almost worst case scenario. It will be worst case if Ezra Miller keeps getting in headlines in a bad way into next year, because it'll refresh people's memories ahead of that movie coming out. At this point, like, whatever impact is going to have at the Fantastic Beast, it's done. They can't do anything at this point. And I say all this, I'm not going to say I feel bad for Warner Brothers insofar as I ever feel bad for any multi-million-dollar corporation. Yeah, no pity, but like, this is not a fun situation. I kind of wish I was a fly on the wall in some of the board meetings when they have to figure out what to do. I would be shocked if they continue to employ Ezra Miller, regardless of the narrative of either of these movies, regardless of if the character is still alive or even positioned to be more of a main character at the end of the third Fantastic Beast. They're not going to bring them back. And with The Flash, no matter how that ends, and even if they don't do an additional reshoot to plug in another actor, there's no way they're bringing Ezra Miller back after this. I cannot imagine a scenario. And again, that is less to do with the severity of what they did than the fact that it is a repeating issue. I bring this up a lot. It's the reason that Gina Carano was let go from Star Wars, but someone like Rosario Dawson was not. Regardless of what you think of the specifics of the controversy around those two performers and their involvement with Star Wars and Lucasfilm, the simple fact is the controversy that existed around Rosario Dawson revolved around a single incident that was not a repeating issue. And she also wasn't talking publicly about it, which let it fade out of the news cycle. Gina Carano kept showing up in the news over and over and over and over again. So again, not about the severity of the accusation, but more about the fact that she couldn't stop making headlines. And that's bad for image. And that's what Warner Brothers now has with Ezra Miller. Oh boy, what a flippin' mess. It's funny, I'm not even mad at this one. I just kind of have to laugh. Just, Whew. This job, the stuff I have to look into and parse. What are your thoughts on all this? Whatever they are, no personal attacks as best you can. And by personal attacks, I mean like no name calling, no throwing out unfounded accusations to any of the people who I talked about, to me, to other commenters. Please don't do any of that. I'll delete your comment. But other than that, whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments and let's talk about it. Patreon's how I'm able to rework my entire schedule and take a day to shoot this and edit it and get it up for early access to the Patreon supporters. So if you want to support me there, that's you got to see this about like 3 days early. But even if you're not able to do that, like, share, subscribe, ton of other stuff that I do, links down in the description to things like books, Twitch, TikTok, Twitter, all that sort of thing. But don't worry too much about it. What I really want you to remember is that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. You're the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. And credits. I got to shout out my top Patreon supporters, so thank you very much to Zubin Lutfullah, Tarak, Oliver B., Melinda Walters, Leotha Boyd, TT, Bernabulax the Poodle, Eidolon, Tracy Scrabbit, Vincent Paul Bartolucci, Angry Caspero, Adam Lefty Taylor, Shane Ross, Robin Moore, Shayla Gourlay, and Brendan LaRose. Couldn't do it without you.